Team-based care. So I'm going to pause here and say, first of all, no disclosure related to this presentation, but I want to say that the session objectives here is to understand the benefits and the principles of team-based care, understanding team-based care structures in the MDPCP model, and how to navigate team-based care, building relationships, team communication, dealing with conflict. So again, we've already discussed the foundation of where team-based care, for team-based care and how you can build on that. It starts with the individual, it starts with understanding change, it starts with understanding how to change processes by applying evidence-based methodologies. Then now we want to talk about team-based care, because the true change, the real change in the Maryland Primary Care Program in particular, but more in general, primary care transformation, is how the provider, the physician, the nurse practitioner, PA have to learn to work with others. They have to learn how to let go, how to delegate, and it takes a village. They have to understand it takes a village. So understanding how to work as a team is something very important. Some things I may be saying to you may sound familiar, some may sound like, okay, this is never possible, but that's where we need to get to if this would work. Right now, we currently have shortage of physicians, as you know, as well as providers in general. Thank goodness for nurse practitioners and PAs stepping in to help with that. But in light of that, that even further makes us even keen on identifying, okay, what can the practitioners do that we can delegate to them to do, and have everybody else in the team take off or take on other activities to support with patient care delivery. So very important thing. So that's the main transition. And when we do the training for the practitioners, that is what we want to communicate to them, that you cannot continue doing business as usual. And I understand, you cannot. And it may take 10 years for you, it may take 5, it may take 1, but you have to get there eventually if we have to move to value-based care. Okay, so pre-survey, on a scale of 1 to 5, please rate your knowledge for the topics 5 to 6 and 7. I'm sure by now you get the hang of it. We're trying to see if we're giving you new information or improving on what you already know. So team-based care principles, you have to have shared goals. Everybody needs to be working towards a mission, a goal. You have to have clear roles. Please, I know, especially with small practices, people wear multiple hats. Please identify what those hats really are, because it's very often, you know, that you don't have clear delineation of roles, and when the ball drops, then we look around to wonder who should we hold accountable. So try your best to make it clear what is my responsibility, who is my backup, right? So that way we know we're walking together as a team, we wear multiple hats, but we're clear on who does what. We should have mutual trust. One of my, what I say, perils of leadership is I assume innocence until proven otherwise. So you may yell at me, you may curse me out. That first time, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. She may have a good reason to do this, that. So always allow an environment, a thought process, an attitude that encourages you to build trust. Effective communication. If you're not saying it, I don't know. So find a way to communicate. Choose your words. For example, you can have someone in a meeting say something, and if you start with "I disagree with you," you've already caught the lifeline. The word "disagree" just shut things down. Now the person is going to be stuck on saying, "I will show you why you shouldn't disagree with me." But you can say, "Wow, you actually just provoked a thought," and they were like, "Wow, I made her think. I'm smart." So you're saying the same thing, but your approach is thoughtful, because at the end of the day, you want to get buy-in, you want to communicate. If you cannot get past that back and forth, then how do you communicate? So choose your words wisely. Then have measurable processes and outcomes. So everybody kind of knows, okay, what does success look like? How do we know when we're doing a good job versus a bad job? Many times, if you don't determine this ahead of time, and you come in the middle of the process and say, by the way, that's the goal we're trying to measure, people will think you're actually trying to, set them up. So that's why it's good to know ahead of time, hey, what is the goal? What is the success measure we're working towards? So we can at least know when we're there or when we're not doing well. The benefits of team-based care. So care transformation to team-based care requires an investment. You have to identify what additional resources do I need? Who else do we need on our staff? Lucky enough, the MDPCP provides some funding ahead of time so that you can make those investments. I would say that some practices did struggle at the beginning to understand, what do I use the money for? And they held on to it to kind of think about it because they didn't want to make the wrong investment. So these are conversations you can have with your CTO if you do have a CTO, or you can reach out to your practice coach and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, and brainstorm. But you need to make the right investment for a team-based care structure. And then you have to also develop new functions and then establish a new culture. However, once you make that initial investment, make sure that it is sustainable, because the benefits of team-based care would show itself as you make the right investments. If you make the wrong investments, then it's pretty much like you just threw money away or spent money and nothing was, improved or changed. Now, this can be even as serious as having to hire and fire people almost a month apart. Be bold and be clear on goals and what you want to accomplish, and see if you can try and do what you can to make things work. But if you think you're hitting a hard wall, make the right decision soon enough so you fail fast and then recover and move forward. The benefits to the practice team is that you improve provider and care team satisfaction, you improve team communication, and you improve patient safety. The benefits to the patient is that you have a proactive and timely, patients have proactive and timely access to care. Their chronic conditions are better managed, and it also improves the patient's experience because they see a group of folks coming together to really support them. Now, we've moved from what we call patient satisfaction now to patient experience. And the key difference here is that with patient satisfaction, you assess the patient at one time. But with patient experience, you're trying to sum up from how I felt the front desk staff treated me, to the MA prepping me, to how the physician spoke to me, or the nurse practitioner or PA spoke to me, to how my social worker tried to help me through my behavioral health needs or social needs, and CHW, and so on and so forth. So it's now a sum of the interactions, and that's why you have to work as a team, make sure everybody's on the same page. In session 11, Angelica will talk to you about motivational interviewing techniques, because it's a way to say things to people. And the fact that you think your front desk staff is non-clinical, then you don't have to invest in training them, and it's just the clinical folks. Well, that's the first point of contact. What if she just say, oh, how you do? You're here today? Well, you're late. It's 15 minutes, and this person is trying to limp to. You haven't asked if she had a rough day, what happened. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to reschedule you. Really? So it all adds up. So in the MDPCP, this is an AHRQ white paper that shows that if you have different patient patterns, just assuming these guys are, the purple here are patients that have diabetes, this will have hypertension, it doesn't really matter, but you need to have a coherent provider team that works together, and this team has to build a relationship with each of these individual patients and or patient groups. Now, this diagram here shows you that there are different types of teams, so you can have just 2 people in the practice, you can have 3, you can have 4 over here. Please note the position of the patient. What they're trying to say is that this patient may have a stronger bond with this particular person on the care team. That could be the care manager. That could be the community health worker. That could be the practitioner. The goal is that we have a point that we can start from where the patient can begin to build trust with the team. So don't fight it, walk with it, and leverage that relationship. As long as somebody who is in the team has a trusted relationship with the patient, we can all build on that. So be sensitive to what works, and don't assume that because you empaneled me to this physician, I must like him or her. But maybe I like the nurse he works with, and for that, I'll tolerate him, or I'll be more open, or I will engage with him over time. So again, leverage that. So in the MDPCP program, this coherent, cohesive team can be a combination of the practice staff, CTO staff, and vendors. But it doesn't matter what the combination is. The patient should not see them as different people pulling them in different directions. So the practice has to be protective of its patients. So that's why if you notice in many of the information that has come through CMS, they say, oh, you need to first of all send information out to the patients to tell them the program is here. If you're working with a CTO, we need to send them yet another communication that, hey, you're going to be working with a CTO, and you'll be working with an MA, and this is her name, this is what she looks like, so that they are prepared. And when the CTO staff goes out to the practices and meet with the patients or in their environment of their homes, they're supposed to start with, I am from Dr. such and such, so that they keep seeing that unified front. And same thing with vendors. And vendors are getting better for those who use vendors for different things, especially behavioral health, that's popular. They also know to start with, yes, I may be with my doula or whoever I'm with, but I am coming to you on behalf of this practice. So that's very important to keep that communication going. So team-based care compositions, technically you have the clinical care team and you also have the support care team. So there will be, the composition will be kind of multiple variations of these, but typically the clinical team is the primary care provider, the medical assistant, the RN, the care manager, social worker, behavioral health specialist. Different practices call different folks different things. So it doesn't matter, just what works for your practice. And support care team includes the administrative support, the QI specialist, office manager, analyst, transformation coach, whatever. I want to emphasize that this is the care team of the patient, because if we only focus on the clinical care team members, what happens when we need to review reports? What happens when the EMR breaks down? What happens when the front desk staff has issues in terms of process, protocol? So it takes a village. Now, these guys may be the first line of defense, frontline staff, but these guys are just as important. So team building. Team building involves various types of activities to enhance social relations and define roles within the team. Team building steps include to explore the team. Some people are natural leaders. They show up and they just want to take charge. Build on that. You have some folks who show up and just want, tell me what to do so I can get it over with. Take advantage of that. Identify the task and the requirements. Develop a vision. This will be the team lead who's doing this to remind us and come in and kind of get us all wound up. Perform as a team. Build an agenda. Please, even though you're already set in what you want to do as a supervisor or as a lead, because you've done it before, you're experienced in it, it doesn't hurt to bring people on board by asking for feedback. If I feel my voice is heard, I will do much more. Everyone who's working in this field is above 18, is an adult, I mean. So they have a mind of their own. And it matters that you see them. So just soliciting feedback, even though you don't put it into practice or take it, tells them that you see them. So find a way to actively show as a lead that you would build the agenda with the team. You can have a straw man version and share with the team, but give room for some, maybe the color of the font should be pink. Something as simple as that. Building benefits of team building, it improves productivity, it increases motivation, it increases collaboration, encourages creativity, positive reinforcement, and improves communication. Team building starts with you. Know yourself. Know what you're good at. Know what you're not good at. Listen to others and discover what they are good at, what they're not good at. Try and ask people, how did I do? Is the hardest thing to say, especially when you don't know what you're going to be told. But at least it's better that I didn't hear from the grapevine or you look at me side eyes. It's better that I came up front and said, hey, I just want to be better. Could you give me feedback? When you say it that way, first of all, you release the person from feeling that it's something wrong they're about to say because you just asked for feedback. I want to do better. And they feel, okay, now I can help you by saying what I'm about to say. So if you are being reached out to for feedback, again, choose your words. Say, I think you could do, first of all, start with a positive. I think, by the way, you did a great job supporting this patient, following them up after they were discharged, and try to see how you can coordinate transportation or food. However, what I thought you should have done was escalate the situation to the nurse so that she could provide some medication reconciliation because this person missed their meds and because of that has shown up today and the blood pressure is high, something like that. But start with a positive and then move to the improvement piece of it. Conflict resolution. In a world of women, it's a good skill to have. So growing up with 4 sisters and a mother, I am seasoned. So conflict is a natural part of our lives, as well as every organization. So don't shy away from it, know how to deal with it. So conflict resolution is a way for 2 or more people to find a peaceful solution to a disagreement. When a dispute arises, the best course of action is to negotiate. Don't come in there with a hard line of my way or the highway. So if you look at this chart here, these are the different outcomes that you can that can happen in conflict resolution. You can have you can compete and defeat, be a winner at any cost. And your way may be the way, but the day you get fired, like, thank God, they should have done that sooner. So the next one is to withdraw. People avoid you. Take whatever you get. And then you have compromise. It's like, okay, we'll do half here and half there, split the difference. And then you have another outcome is accommodate. You give in, like, okay, let's just let peace reign here. But the goal here is to get to a collaborative solution where you problem solve together so everybody wins. This may not be achieved at all times, but you want to stay on the right side of this chart where your options are somebody is being accommodating, trying to be patient to kind of hear and see, maybe I'll change my mind, or compromise and say, okay, why don't we meet each other halfway, or actually truly work together. So if you find yourself here, you need to identify ways that you can get here, and we'll talk about that. So 7 ways that you can accomplish a better conflict resolution outcome is to understand the conflict. Sometimes people go at each other and like, what was the issue again? So don't get lost in the symptom. Again, understand what the disease is. Understand what the conflict is. Communicate with the opposition. If you're opposing someone, the natural thing to do is not talk to them. It's not to confront. But you can change what you tell yourself you're about to do. If you're not confrontational, if you say, please, I'd like to understand better. You're confrontational when you say, you did this and you did that. Now, some people may not know that new way of approach. So when you show up, the fact you just showed up, you didn't even say anything, you're like, oh, but you can try, because the first words out of your mouth can make or break the situation. So communicate with the opposition. Brainstorm possible resolutions. Okay, what are the options? But for you to be here, you have to be open, not to be stuck on your own ideas. Then choose the best solution. I'm also a Girl Scout troop leader. I've been for 6 years now. And as the girls grow older, it gets more difficult. So I think I tried one thing for them that I used to do with my practice staff, and I said, okay, we'll be objective. We're about to choose a take action project for how to address bullying. I said, okay, so what are your ideas? And we put them, they came up with 5. Good. So we put the 5 on the board, and we're going to take a vote. How many people think one will do? Hands up, we put the number. 2 would do, hands up, we put the number. And by the time we saw that, that knocked off 3 off the board. Yay, progress. So now we have 2. So what do? Now, when we tried this the first time, you could see this friend looking at that friend like, you're not supporting my ideas. I said, okay, we're going to do a closed ballot. So just write it down and I'll put it up there. So we don't know who wrote what. And then we came down to 2. And it just stuck, it stayed at 50-50. So what did we do? We combined it. And the 2 was to address bullying and to build positive and healthy relationships. So that became the topic. And they wanted to do it in school. So we talked to the principal, we launched a campaign, and it was great. And I think what was eye-opening there is that what is happening with the kids in their age also happened to adults, even in the practices. And it was, studies show that 70% of bullying is verbal and non-verbal. So just the way I look at you, the way I ignore you. So it was eye-opening for them to see, oh, I just thought she was mean. She was actually being a bully. I said, yeah. And they, it was fun. So choose the best resolution and do it in an objective way so people can really feel like, yes, this was done together. Use a third-party mediator. If you cannot make any headway, call somebody else. Listen to both sides and what do you think? Again, whoever the third-party mediator is has to be somebody who is mature enough to know what's going on and make sure they're not trying to take sides. They're really trying to be objective. Again, talking through it objectively, even though you don't choose to do what I think is the right thing to do, the fact that we talk through it in a stepwise manner makes me be at least more open to change. Explore alternatives. What else? Do we have to be stuck here? Can we just do something completely different? So now we have a breakout session, and we would like to know if you have initiated team-based care in your practice at all. It's simple yes or no. Okay, we do show of hands. The next slide. I was fast tracking. It's okay. But just show of hands. Who has done team-based care, implemented team-based care? So about 40% of those in the room. Okay, so now you can see that for us to be successful in this transformation journey, this is what we need everybody's hand to go up. So it wouldn't happen overnight, but at least you know where we need to go. And many of us who have already started team-based care are at different stages of it, and we'll look into that a little bit more. And what's the other question? Okay, yeah, I would like to do that one, but I can just ask again. Can you share team building activities that you would recommend or you've implemented in your practices? Team building activities. Yes.
We do huddles, and when we do intervention with physicians come back to us and try to navigate
Awesome. So she's talking about huddles. Anything else? Yes.
I think in the future, I think we can encourage staff by, encouraging them and thanking them, so showing their appreciation that they are part of the team. I think a lot of times they feel like they're in the backwind, but we really can't do it without them. So I think from the leadership level, we appreciate them more, just show the little things that might automatically kind of start building some team building initiatives.
Exactly, employee appreciation.
I think in our organization, we've also used days away, where everybody's away from the practice. And then there's time for people to have input and feel like they're valued.
Okay, so days away where people have time to break away from the day-to-day. And I also want to say something that's very common is that employee appreciation week or day is once a year. It should be more often than that. Because at the time you're appreciating me, I'm like, and then I long forget it, or it's just, you just do it to check the box. Nothing changes in the culture, the way I'm treated, the way I'm acknowledged. But here you are, buying me free lunch, probably a blanket, a jacket, a shirt, a bag. So something to think about. Something that's very common is happy hour. Seeing less with healthcare professionals, we don't want you drinking, but sometimes you can really say what you need to say in a lighter mood at those times. But other things, people try to just plan a trip together and things like that. So if you are in a supervisory role, just remember that it's so important. I would recommend every quarter, find something that you can do with a team to really make them feel appreciated. So as a recap for this session, we talked about the principles and benefits of team-based care. We talked about a different team-based structure. We talked about how to navigate team-based care on the people side of things, how you build the relationships, how you communicate, how you deal with conflict. In future sessions, we will actually show you a video of how team-based care actually works, the different team members and how they hand off with each other. So if we have any questions, please ask right now. And while doing that, please answer the post-survey questions. And now we take a 10-minute break.